This is a new setup and trying to get this all worked out. The reason it was a little bit late was because I started streaming, but it started going to the wrong feed. So it was actually streaming to a separate live event than the one that it's streaming to now. I'm still trying to make sure everything is working right. Actually, I know that it's not because the video is not showing. Okay, give me one more second. Get this worked out. Okay. All right, now it's showing me. Looks like the capture device froze up or something. But anyway, now you should see me. Now you should hear me. If there's any problem with the video, hearing me or seeing me, please let me know. Again, this is a new setup, so I don't have all the bugs worked out yet. For instance, I don't have a way to switch the video right here from where I'm working. Sledgehammer is way over there on the other side of the room. I'm doing everything remotely, and I don't have a second person to run everything. I'm also not able to monitor the audio because the mixer is way over there. So the levels look good from what I can see from here, but I don't know, everything else is just kind of on its own. Eventually, the future setups, I want to get a stream deck so that I can, control everything from over here. Well, I do have a stream deck, but the problem is I'm streaming to 2 instances of OBS right now. Something I'll talk about later. And to be able to use the stream deck, I have to define special keys so that OBS controls one stream but not the other. But that's irrelevant. So anyway, this is probably going to be a long stream. It's not anything in particular. I'm just building a computer and just decided to live stream it while I was doing it. So more than likely will be a two-part stream. The first part will be me building it. The second part will be setup and benchmarks and all that stuff. So obviously, if you follow anything computers, yesterday was the AMD release date, 7/7. I forget what the significance of that was, but July 7th was the day they picked for some reason on a Sunday, which has thrown me off considerably. True story, Micro Center opens at 8 a.m. on Sundays. Did not know that. And when I decided that we were going to get up there and be there when they open, before they open so that we could get one, I didn't know that it meant I would have to wake up at 6 something in the morning. But anyway, we did it and we were there. And they actually had plenty of hardware, surprisingly. So the processor, well, I guess let me talk about this computer first. So this computer it belongs to a friend. And she wanted to upgrade the computer and basically get something newer. I forget how old she says her current hardware is, but it's one of the old AMD chips that weren't good from the 2008, 9-ish era, somewhere in there. I forget exactly how old she said it was, but it's one of those chips after I stopped using AMD that weren't really that great. But she is an AMD fan. She loves AMD. She loves the underdog story, basically. Even though I'm not sure how much of an underdog they are anymore. But yeah, she wanted to stick with AMD, so we're going to do an AMD build. She decided to spend all of her money on performance. So we are using the same case that she had before, and it was an old case to begin with. And I believe she told me that when the old computer was put in it, it was an old case. So we are talking a very old case here. This will very much be a sleeper build once this computer is done, because the look of the case will not match the performance at all. But at the end of the day, it's all about the experience, right? So what we have is the AMD Ryzen 7 3700X. I'm not really sure if we're going to try to overclock it or not. She decided to stick with the stock cooler for now, so we're not going to do a water cooled, not even an all-in-one water cooled build today. She said that there may be an option for the future, which I highly recommended for her, because if you know anything about the new AMD Ryzen chips, if you can keep them cool, they will turbo until they get too hot. So I strongly recommended that for her. So that's the chip we're starting with. For the motherboard, she decided to go with an MSI X570 Gaming Plus. I'm not really sure if she wanted MSI specifically for any particular reason other than the one that she currently has is an MSI. But you know, in Project Assassin not Project Assassin, Project Stealth, I used the MSI board as well. Project Assassin was an Asus board. But anyway, so we're going with the MGP X570 Gaming Plus motherboard. PCI Express 4.0, has, you know, the little fan on there that everybody's been talking about. So I mean, it is what it is, guys. Eventually somebody will have that water cooled, so I have no doubts about that. For the GPU, again, she wanted to stick with AMD, so we're doing the Radeon, specifically Sapphire RX 5700 XT GPU. I'm not really sure if there are any differences when you're going from one GPU to the other at this point, because again, they're all reference build, or what do they call them now? It's not founders. That's what NVIDIA calls them. What do you call these now? But anyway, it's a reference card, so it does have the blower style fan on it. And I believe her current system is using like onboard APU graphics, so this will definitely be a huge step up for her. The Corsair Vengeance LPX, 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, knowing the old AMD CPUs and the Infinity Fabric issue, where overclocking the CPU meant overclocking the RAM as well, I decided to go with fast RAM, or I guess it's not super fast these days, but faster than you would normally go. So we took it a step up and went with 3200 megahertz DDR4. That's not super fast these days, but it's not bottom basement. I think in Sledgehammer I'm running like 2666 or something. So of course that's a production rig. This is gaming, but it's kind of middle of the road, I guess. Not slow, not fast. 3.6, something like that. I don't know if you know what that means. For the storage, we went with an Intel SSD. Now, she did not want anything Intel in her system, but I talked her into getting this because there's a hell of a deal on these SSDs. Normally, I would go with Samsung, but Samsung is the best. It is also the most expensive. So we decided we'd go with. She let me put this on the ticket, and we're going with this Intel's 660p, I believe 660p series, 1 terabyte drive, M.2 NVMe. These things are selling for right at around $100, which is a hell of a deal, because when I built Sledgehammer M.2 at 1 terabyte, you're looking at well over $1,000. So in my opinion, this is a hell of a deal. So those are the main components. To finish up the build, sorry, hit the microphone there. This is an old Corsair, not Corsair, Cooler Master power supply that I had around. Hey, Take It Ride, what's up, man? Good to see you in here. Cooler Master power supply. This thing is old. I want to say 2008, something like that, is when I bought this thing. but for most of its life, it has been sitting in boxes. It has barely been used. Her old computer had a 425 watt power supply in it, and I knew that wasn't going to cut it. That it just wasn't. And she's a friend of mine, so that she wasn't spending money on things like the power supply, I decided, you know, this is just sitting around so she can have it, and it kind of matches the sleeper theme as well anyway. So 660 watt, nothing fancy. I'm not sure. I don't think it has like any kind of gold or 80 plus rating. I'm not sure. That was 80 plus ratings was just kind of getting started when this power supply came out. But it does work. I ran it in stealth for about a year, and then took it out and put the newer Corsair 880 or 850 watt that I had in there. So, hey Eric, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. So, I guess I will mention these as well. Her computer, her current build has one fan in it, and it's in the back. And I don't build computers with negative pressure. So we're doing the Corsair maglev fans. I'm a huge fan of, no pun intended, I'm a huge fan of Noctua fans. I believe on the consumer side, that's about as good as it gets. But these are a close second. They're not super powerful like the Noctua fans are, but you have what they call a magnetic levitation bearing. Technically, when these fans are running, they don't make contact with anything. You have the hub, and you have I'm not sure if they have a spindle or not. I need to see the cross section, but the way that these are made, the fan itself is not actually physically touching anything. It is just turning and floating in air. So a good way to make a fan if you want something that's going to really last. And then in the Sledgehammer build, I used Noctua industrial fans, rated at full power at 3,000 RPM, but I have them controlled and slowed to something like 700, 800, something like that. I guess it's around 500. But they're system controlled. They do spin up when the system gets hot, and being a production computer, that's just something you have to live with. But anyway, I guess the first thing we'll do is I'm going to pull the motherboard out, stick the SSD and CPU on it, and then we will start mounting hardware. Again, if you just came in the stream, I do not have it set up over here where I can control things, so I'll have to go over there to Sledgehammer, switch the camera, and I have a top-down view so you can see everything that's on my desk right now. And we'll go ahead and do that right now so we can get started building this. Okay, you should still be able to hear me. If there's any problems with the picture, let's see. Okay, the picture's not working, so give me a second to fix that. Okay. All right, sorry guys. I'm still working through some of the bugs getting OBS set up like this. I am running currently 2 streams live. If you didn't know that, this is streaming to both YouTube and Facebook. 4K on YouTube if you want to see the high resolution, although this particular camera is not 4K. If you want to see your chat on the screen, of course, you'll need to be in the YouTube chat. But I am watching the Facebook chat in case anybody wants to say anything in there. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is take out this little guy. And I am using an anti-static mat. just by habit, and it is actually grounded. I am not using the wrist bracelet today for time constraints. Shouldn't be too much of an issue on this particular build because I won't be handling things that much, especially away from the table. So here we go. So I don't have on shoes right now, so that's not really a concern. All right, so here we are with the motherboard. Let me see. I don't know if I can. Okay, so it's been a long time since I've actually mounted a CPU that has pins on it. It has been years, so. We've got our 2x16 PCI Express slots, and these are PCI Express 4.0. Interesting. Okay, so we got an M.2 slot right here, and there's another down here that I didn't know the system had. And I think this is the primary. 4 PCI Express slots. I'm sorry, 4 RAM slots, DDR4 of course. Some very, well, I wouldn't call them super beefy, but it's got some pretty good sized heat sinks on it. And I'm gonna have to figure out. I'm gonna have to learn how these mount because Again, I haven't used any of the AM4 socket CPUs, so I'm going to have to learn the new AMD style. Last time I used an AMD chip, just to put this in reference. The last time I mounted an AMD chip, you had to use a screwdriver to push the bracket down and clip onto the side of the CPU socket. That's how long it's been. And we got a fan header here, a pump header, nice. If we ever actually go water cooled on this, we'll have that. This looks like USB 3.0. I'm not sure, I don't see a label for it. That's definitely USB 3. Little header there for the fan for the chipset. Not sure what that one is. That looks like a USB header. System fans 1, 2, 3, and 4. This one says RGB on it, so that's for LEDs obviously. TPM, which we will not be using on this system. At least not yet. And for the rear I/O, as I recall, all of these are at least 3.0. Let me see. Let me lay this down here. Let's see. Oh, okay. So, according to this, the two left USB ports are USB 2.0. These are 3.2 Gen 1 and 3.2 Gen 2 right here, and 3.2 Gen 1 over here. So I hate the renaming scheme, but if I'm correct, the Gen 1 just means the same as USB 3.0, just renamed for some odd reason. There is one Type-C port, and there is HDMI, which we also won't be using. And this guy here is to flash the BIOS. Oh, that is nice. But I'm a bit upset that the fan has dirt on it. What is that? don't know. Fan has some kind of speck or something on it. I don't know what that is. But that's the motherboard. It's a very, very generic looking M.2. And wait for that. Stickers, they look so nice, you hate to kind of cut through them, but whatever. I'm not gonna spend the time to fill it up. Interesting. Okay, so wonder how good that thermal paste is. I do have my own, but I'm not sure if I want to replace it at this time. I'm guessing. Okay, so this looks like USB. Oh, it is USB. And this is for RGB header, I guess. Interesting. Let this sit in there for now. Alright, catch up on the chat. Eric says, can't wait to see you build on stream because I never build one and want to learn. Okay. I'm not sure how educational this will be for you, but if you have any questions, I'll see if I can answer them for you. Just remember that, again, it's been a while since I've done an AMD build. I've never mounted a AMD chip. I've never mounted a Ryzen AMD chip. So this is my first Ryzen. The last time I mounted one, they were using something like socket 939 or something. It's a long time ago. Guessing that we should use that as the primary M.2. Let's go back to the motherboard box and see what else we have in here real quick. Okay, so they do have they include a heat sink for that M.2. Got that. SATA cables. We will need one of those because she is retaining an old hard drive that she has. At first she wanted to go with a 512 SSD, but I talked her into getting the bigger one. I don't believe that anybody should install a boot drive less than 1 terabyte in 2019. And of course, if you're gaming and there's a game that you play a lot, you want that to be on the SSD anyway, because it's definitely going to affect your load times. The last thing you want is your system waiting to load textures or something while the rest of the game is ready to go. They still include a DVD. That is okay. That's special. But true story. Her system actually does have DVD in it. It has 2 DVD drives. I don't know how often she uses those. I know for a fact that the reason I built Sledgehammer without DVD was because the drive I had went well over a year without being used. And at that point, I knew that it was just dead. It was a dead technology to me. I have an external USB drive that I use if the need ever comes up, but even still, I rarely have to pull that thing out. I think the last time I pulled it out was to copy a driver disk and save it to my network drive. Enter, let's make sure. Case standoff notification, that looks important. For installing motherboard and case, install necessary mounting standoffs required. Case standoff keep out zone. Okay, that's interesting. But isn't it just common sense? Even if you've never built a computer before, isn't it just common sense that you shouldn't have standoffs on the backside of the motherboard making contact with it in places that there are no screw holes? Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Last thing you want is something being shorted out. And they still have crossfire. It's interesting. They call it crossfire. Case standoff keep out zone. There's not really anything to see on the back of the board, I guess, for you guys. We have the back side of the mounting bracket for the CPU. There are LEDs here, so I'm guessing it looks like this lights up from the front. And I'm sure this line here is probably for LEDs as well. It probably lights up. Looks like there are solder points here, but there's nothing attached. I think those are for LEDs. Maybe optional on a different board, higher end board or something. I'm not sure. So I'm guessing one of the higher end models has LEDs here that this one doesn't have. But it does have LEDs on this side. Debug LEDs. I just noticed there's no counter on this board. Okay, interesting. Let's see. Unipixel Media, I would say the opposite. Don't install a boot drive larger than 512. Use a second 1 or 2 terabyte drive for games. I went with 512. Well, maybe. There's gonna be a point where when you get to when we start making larger and larger drives, eventually 512 is gonna become so small that it's either going to be too cheap to manufacture, or you just won't find them, or something. Eventually, they're going to go away. So you don't necessarily need 512. I mean, a terabyte for a primary drive, but at the same time, you can get a larger drive and partition it to have multiple, be seen as multiple drives on the system, which is probably what I'm going to do here. I'm not exactly sure yet, but the main point I was getting to is that I would rather have 1 terabyte of SSD solid state storage rather than have a 512 SSD and then try to go for a another terabyte in mechanical storage. It's really up to your preference, but in this particular case, I might partition the SSD into 2 separate drives. She doesn't use as many programs as I use. I know 512 on Sledgehammer is cutting it close. You also have to worry about provisioning. If you have a smaller drive, the more it's used, the more the faster you're gonna kill it. Larger drive with more unused what do you call them? NAND cells. That's not the proper name, but a larger SSD where more of the data is unused gives you more provisioning, because as bits in there start going bad, the drive itself is going to start to shrink. And let's see. Eric says, I'm unexperienced, but I do need to buy additional Wi-Fi adapter. Interesting fact, yesterday when we were looking at these boards, this is the one that she chose. And we got a great deal on it. It was $124 plus tax. But they had an ASRock board that was the same price. They were both $150 in store, but they're for the I don't know if it's because we bought the combo deal or because it's launch day, but either way it goes, they were taking off $25 in the store. So for $125, she could have got the ASRock as well, which had Wi-Fi built on the board. She didn't want it in this particular instance, and I guess she didn't really care one way or another. Where the computer she has now, or the one that I'm upgrading, where it sits, she already has Ethernet, a dedicated Ethernet connection. So she didn't really care too much about Wi-Fi. I'm the type of person that I always want to keep my options open in case something changes down the road. Maybe I need Wi-Fi, so I would have did that. But I used to be a salesman, and as a salesman, one of the things I learned is if a customer wants something, you offer them options, but do not try to drive them to something else if they chose something that they really want, unless you know there's like a reason not to, or it's somehow bad. If there's no real cons to getting something else, then tell them what their options are, and if they choose it, they'll choose it. If not, then just move on, because it's not really a fight worth fighting. She doesn't need Wi-Fi, so we didn't go for it. And Unipixel Media said, "Who needs more than 64K anyway, right? Who needs that? You might as well just have a Raspberry Pi, because that's more than you'll ever use." All right, so let's see. It looks pretty. How do I like the Sapphire box? The Sapphire box is pretty nice. The question is, how does the GPU perform? Now, again, it's been a long time since I bought AMD Radeon stuff. The last Radeon GPU I bought was the XFX 6950. Jeez, how long ago was that? But since back then, XFX was kind of like the go-to brand for warranty, because they had lifetime warranties on all their stuff. So that's why I chose it back then. I don't know how they are today. They offered us an XFX, but I specifically asked for a Sapphire, And the only reason I asked for Sapphire is because Sapphire Ed used to do all these, live streams. I don't even know if he's still with Sapphire, but I saw him a lot on PC Perspective, the PC Pro channel. He used to do a lot of live streams with them. He used to, go in there and talk about how good Sapphire was and how they treat their customers and take care of their customers. And even, if something comes up that's, kind of out of warranty, he would stand by his statement that Sapphire would take care of their customers. So that's really what sold me on their brand. So this is my first Sapphire card. Again, for y'all who didn't see the beginning, this is the box. It is my first time recommending or buying Sapphire, but I've been watching them. I've been watching what they do online and everything, and it seems like a great brand to go with. I haven't heard any complaints about this company, so it was the way we went. Again, it's a reference card, so more or less all they're doing is slapping their name on it and selling it to you. So, but hey, if the company's going to stand behind their product, they're going to stand behind it. See, Warren Martinez says some motherboards don't have Wi-Fi and you'll need an adapter. It's very true. Sledgehammer doesn't have Wi-Fi, and I use every PCI Express port on there except one, and that one is covered by the GPU. So I actually have an external device. It's not. It was right behind me before I started streaming, but if you've seen my videos, there is a video I did a couple years ago about this Asus Wi-Fi repeater, and guys, that thing has been a soldier for me. It has been a champion. Before I wired up my current apartment, it was how Sledgehammer connected to the Wi-Fi, and it uses two streams. I'm not even sure if you can still buy this guy, but it was like $150 when I bought it. But if you can, and you need external Wi-Fi, a good way to go. It uses two streams simultaneously, 5 gigahertz and 2.4, and connects to your Wi-Fi. Combines those two signals at the same time. I was getting most of my gigabit connection over there at Sledgehammer using that Wi-Fi. I think it topped out somewhere around 700, 800 megabits per second, which is pretty close to the maximum when you speed test gigabit, because you have a little bit of overhead. I was getting pretty close. I was usually in the 700 megabit range, and when it came to lag, it was not really adding any. There's a 2 millisecond latency between my computer and the server in Dallas that I test off. And when I connected to Wi-Fi, it was 3 milliseconds. So that 1 millisecond, not really going to hurt anything when you're gaming or live streaming or doing anything like that. Let's see. Con3 says 2% less performance than 2070 Super and costs $100 less. I'm sold. True story. These were supposed to be $449 when they came out. They were supposed to be $399 with the $50 discount, but I don't know if they did it intentionally or not, but they charged us $349 for it. So at that price, it is a hell of a deal. So yeah, $349 for that 5700 XT. I probably couldn't get that deal again if I wanted to, but hey, we took it, so why not? Let's see. Okay, we got thermal compound on that. Yes. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this or not. I know this camera is not super great. There's a standoff right here for the M.2. It's already on the board, so we just need to move that. It's actually loose enough to turn my hands. So. Moving it to the one that it needs to be in. It doesn't need to be super tight. It's not going anywhere. Again, if you missed it earlier, this is an Intel 660p series 1 terabyte SSD. hoping that I can get her to do everything she wants to do off of this guy. Let's see. All right, so if you've never mounted an M.2, basically you slide it into the slot at an angle like that, and then just push it down and put the screw in. In this particular case, the screw came in this little bag here, which needs to be cut. And guys, if you don't have one of these, I highly recommend you get one. This is from Husky, which is a Home Depot brand. They normally come with the red top, but I have this one and I also have one for Torx bits. And to me, it felt like the one for Torx needed the red top, and this one needed the black top, so I switched them. But very handy when it comes to things like this. This guy, compared to something like the iFixit toolkits, those things, yeah, they have a lot of bits in there that are highly specialized. And if you need highly specialized stuff for like working on Nintendo things, you definitely need to get something like that. But for standard things that use small screws, computers, normal computers, etc., this right here was $5. The one for the Torx bit is $5. So, or at least when I bought them, they were. So for most things, these will do. And finger tighten. Don't want to strip that. This is interesting. Okay, there must be something I'm missing here. There we go. Okay, so it looks like this screw here on this side, it looks like it's designed to go into a standoff that goes here, and that's also one of the holes that mount the motherboard. So probably not going to be able to tighten that down until I get the motherboard itself mounted in the case. But it looks like it's probably one of these guys here. And that's interesting. Alright, so I'll put that to the side since we can't use it just yet. And the CPU. Assuming this is like the same. I'm assuming they haven't changed anything on these since 10 years ago, last time I mounted an AMD CPU. Actually, God, it's more like 14 years ago now, something like that. So it looks like it goes in like that. There's an arrow right there on that corner of the CPU. And on the motherboard, there's a dot over here. So I'm assuming that's how it goes in on this one. There's also a notch in the pins over there. So looking at the bottom, this one also has a notch in it as well. So that's definitely how it goes in there. zero enforcing. You do not push them in, you just let it lay down on there. Push the bar down, make sure it's clamped, and it's mounted. CPU is there. Now, Turkey Rod, are you still in here? I know you've mounted one of these before. Do you normally put the CPU fan on first, or do you normally mount your boards and then put it on there? I know on some builds it's easier to mount the fan before you put the motherboard in. In this particular case, I'm not sure. I don't think it would block any of the mounting holes. But I'm not sure I want to do it either. Okay. So it just sits on there. And looking at the board, it actually has marked on here to use DIMM 2 or DIMM A2 and DIMM B2 for the first to populate first. I'm glad they did that. That way I don't have to pull out the manual just to figure it out. It's right there on the board. No guessing, no guesswork required. Let's see. So I'm looking at this board and I just noticed that I don't see a standard front port header. What? So what do the connections connect to on this? Are they all here? JFP1. Oh, okay, right here. Got it. Okay. Okay, so this is the front port header. They have the wiring diagram over here, which is kind of weird, I guess. I'm used to the text just being, right here next to the header, but whatever. So, first two LED, second two switch, these two hard drive, and these two are the reset, and this is nothing. Or it says O or 0. I'm not sure. I don't know. That might be a ground. Who knows? Let's see. Con 3 says I would do M.2 and RAM, then fan, and then put it in the case. Juan Martinez says, don't know, sometimes RAM first is easier, but sometimes it's easier with the fan first. Just depends. I don't know. I think this fan seems pretty easy to mount. I mean, you just clip it on both sides apparently, and just push the lever down to clamp it on here. So I mean that's pretty straightforward. I think it would be easy. It looks like it would be easy to do inside the case, and it doesn't look like it blocks. Unlike Sledgehammer. Well, it might. Let me see. Let's see how big this is. No. It's not going to block the RAM slots at all, so that's not an issue. On Sledgehammer, there are literally RAM slots underneath the heatsink on both sides of the CPU. And that, of course, that's a 4-channel board, so you have a lot more slots. Since it's 2 and 4, you don't need to put the RAM first. Yeah, I mean, even if it was 1 on this board, it's actually far enough away that it wouldn't matter. We're going with 16 gigabytes of RAM. Despite the the raw processing power of this computer, she doesn't really do much more than game. So 16 gigabytes is enough. If you're gonna do anything Adobe related in your build, I would recommend a minimum of 32 gigabytes. You wouldn't believe how RAM hungry Adobe software is. There's actually, I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if I can get it off. There we go. All right, put that on there. Oops. Even after saying all that, I went for the first one. Get in there. Juan Martinez says, do the fan and RAM and then put in case. Okay. I mean, I don't think it would matter either way, but I think we can do that. I don't know if you could see it before. This is what I was peeling off there, though. Nice little RAM. And the Project Assassin build, I used Corsair Vengeance, but I used the RAM with the LEDs on it, which I believe was something like $230 or something ridiculous like that. Oh goodness! Last year RAM prices were ridiculous. They're not super great this year, but they're a lot better than they were last year. Last year, the price of RAM got so high that the memory in my computer in Sledgehammer was actually worth almost twice what I paid for it. And 256 gigabytes of RAM is not cheap. Let's put it that way. I strongly considered selling that RAM and getting a cheaper computer. Let's see. Country says I'm using CL6 or 16 gigabyte D4, and it's working perfect. I'm a designer using a lot of software. My little R7 1800X is doing his job. What kind of software do you use? Are you using the Adobe suite? Because I guarantee you, if you're doing anything Adobe related and you're like serious on it, it's caching your RAM to your SSD. That's the only reason that you're getting away with it. And I know this because Sledgehammer having 256 gigabytes of RAM allows programs to dump whatever it wants in there and just keep going without having to cache it. And when I use Adobe, that the amount of RAM in there skyrockets. Now, a couple years ago, they changed something to optimize for computers with lesser RAM. But at one point, I rendered it was a 15-second introduction for Technoscope in After Effects. and I got up to 220 gigabytes of usage using After Effects. So I guarantee, if you're doing anything heavy duty in Adobe software, I guarantee you it's the only reason you're getting away with it is because it's caching data to your SSD. That's the only way it can do it. When I do something like when I render my videos now on in Premiere, it's usually somewhere in the 60 something gigabyte range for usage. Yeah, Juan Martinez. Oh, I'm sure it is. This little processor is a beast. AMD's really got me considering what I'm gonna do, where my options lie for the upgrade to Sledgehammer, because with them unlocking everything, the Threadripper might be a good direct replacement eventually. Again, right now I'm running 36 cores. They don't have anything quite that heavy duty, but it's come to the point where it's so close that I might, make a lateral movement. Going to a newer CPU that's easier to overclock, as well as have newer technology. Hopefully their next release of Threadripper has PCI Express 4.0, and also if I can get Thunderbolt. Those are the things that I want the most. Yeah, Con 3, trust me, I've been all through the settings in Adobe, and I'm like, if you can just, I know they have a setting in there where you can set it to be more conservative for RAM, and trust me, I've already been through there, and lately it's conserving more than it used to. It's kind of frustrating because at one point when they were optimizing for quad core CPUs, I could see my render work getting slower and slower with each update they released, and it sucked. But now that AMD is pushing higher thread, higher core count CPUs, they're actually going back the other way. And I can see with every release that they release now, my computer actually gets faster when I do my work or I render something, which is great. I love it. So it's funny that my computer over there that's 3 years old is getting faster still. But that's what I built it for. All right. So do you think I should leave this thermal paste on here that they include, or should I put my own? This stuff, I don't know. I have no idea how good that stuff is. But at the same time, we're just air cooling. Chances are it's the limit of the heat sink will be met long before the thermal paste will. This thing is a beast. Last time I had a stock CPU cooler was one of those little Intel things. It was basically a bunch of fins with a fan sitting on top of it. Those things were horrible. Yeah, that 3950X is going to be a beast. It's AMD paste, not third party I'd keep it. Yeah. I don't really see a reason to change it out right now. And again, I gave her the option that if she wants to upgrade to an all-in-one cooler later, that I would help her do it. I do have this by Noctua. I got tubes of this stuff with all the CPU, all the fans and stuff that I bought from them. I also have some Antec, what do they call that stuff? Something 7, Formula 7 Diamond or something like that, which is what I use on the good stuff. I have no Thermal Grizzly, although I'm interested in trying this stuff. It's perfectly made for Ryzen. If it overheats, just add yours. Yeah, I don't think it'll overheat. I seriously doubt it. If this system overheats, then she is not giving the computer enough air. There's no way. Now, it may not run full out. Well, I mean, she's only gaming, so even I don't see a scenario where she's gonna run that CPU 100%. I just don't see it happening. All right, so which way should this go? Probably like this, right? The lever at the top. That's what I would think. I just got a switch on it. He's not PWM. It's PWM. So is this a switch to slow the fan? I've never seen that before. Again, I haven't really researched these. I knew they made the change, but I never really researched it. So it says L and H on the switch. I'm guessing that means low and high, or yeah, low and high. At the end of the day, it's all about how fans in your case work. Yeah. And again, I'm adding three. I'm putting 3 new fans in the case. There's gonna be 2 intake and 1 outlet fan, so shouldn't be an issue. Plus, this case is old enough. This case is actually old enough that the power supply. I don't know if you can still see it. It's not in view. The power supply is gonna sit at the top of the case. It's one of those. So with the fan is going to be directly over the CPU, so the heat is just going to go up and out. So, all right. So this old way we used to do this: clamp it on this side first, and then clip the other side. So. It's on the CPU, it's centered, sort of, mostly. And clamp down. Alright, CPU fan plugged in. Okay. So, let's see. Stock cable equals solid color. Second one equals RGB. Are you talking about for the power? What do you mean stock cable? For the LEDs in here? Con 3? What cases would you recommend for better cooling and fan space? Fractal Design. They are very, very, very much concentrated on cooling, which is ironic because Cooler Master, who has the name Cooler in their name, have released questionable cases in the past. They have some decent ones as well, but I think Fractal Design is probably one of the better ones for concentrating on how well a case keeps the products cool in it. The Meshify case is the one that I wanted her to get. We may eventually still get that, but she wanted to spend all her money on performance, so sleeper build it is. And trust me, this is a very old case. Here is the top. I mean not the top. The front. I guess that's the current CPU. She did not build this computer. Somebody else built it for her. So, but it has, I guess, A series old AMD processor in it. This case is very much utilitarian. Mario from Italy. Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. As far as the other cases go, again, Fractal Design is probably my top recommendation. If you need something cheaper, I would have to look. There are a lot of cases out there for looks, not very many for cooling. Many of them concentrate on looks over efficiency. All right, so the actual case itself. Let's put this to the side so we can start working on getting the case prepared, because it needs a lot of work. That. Almost forgot I need to take a picture of this. Or I need to take multiple pictures. Okay, let's see. Hey Juan, thanks for joining us, and have a good day. Let's see. Eric says, which models of Fractal Design do you recommend? I'm more of a what do you call it? I'm more conservative with my cases, so I like the Meshify, what was the old one? Oh goodness, man, my mind is drawing a blank right now. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to look those up. I'll look them up later, but I know the Meshify is one. It's actually on my list to get, one of the ones I want. But yeah, you see what we're working with now. This is the old case. This guy is old and it needs to be clean. It's been sitting around for a very long time. A55M-E33 if you want to look up this board here. It's in a full-size ATX case, which is good because she could save the money on buying the case right now for that reason. But this is very much a micro ATX board. Wire management I expect to be horrible once it's all said and done because this case is not designed for wire management. Oh, actually, I guess they could stand, huh? Still using that. I guess I'll move it down here so it's not taking up space. It only had 2 screws in it. How about that? I don't know. Can you see what I'm doing here? I have to move this up. I'm gonna have to give her some more screws for that. I'm not a fan of having a hard drive with only 2 screws attached to it. True story, the thing that kills hard drives the most is vibration. The #1 killer of all hard drives. Which is why if you ever build a NAS or something that has a lot of hard drives in it, you have to get drives that are specifically made for it because they've been designed to handle the extra vibration. Not to mention they're also designed so that, you know, if it can't read a sector, it doesn't instantly kill your entire setup. Alright, this thing was missing most of the screws on it too. 3 screws holding the motherboard in. It's so whittle. Let's see, she has Kingston RAM now. Let's see what this is. Looks like it's 8 GB sticks. DDR3. Not bad, I guess. Certainly not great, but not bad. Whenever y'all, if y'all are ever into upgrading computers or anything, I used to do this all the time. If you upgrade often enough, you actually put in less money to get the newer hardware because you can take your old hardware and sell it. In a lot of cases, especially like last year was one of those upside down years where hardware shot through the roof. You could have sold your GPU, your RAM, and SSDs last year for more than you paid for them if you bought them the year before. So, used market is good. Now, in my case, I am such a tech head that I never sell used hardware. I just repurpose it. So like that motherboard right there, if it was mine, I would probably build like a small server out of it or something. It would find a use somewhere else. I need to clean all this up too. And it definitely needs more standoffs because it's missing at least 2 of them, 3. Power supply needs to come out. 2. Okay, I'm gonna clean this top off because it's bothering me. This is when I come in with the multi-purpose surface cleaner. I'm just gonna clean the top of this. It's bothering me. Yeah, I guess that's about as good as it's gonna get. It's clean, it's just old and kind of got scratches on it. Alright. We'll need to pop out the old IO shield because we won't need that anymore. Okay, so here's the new I/O shield for this one, for this particular board. You know, when they started going to some of the ones with it built in, I was hoping they would do it for all of them. I hate that we're still using these things. Just build onto the motherboard. Like, what's the purpose of having this as a separate piece? I don't understand. got that in. Another old power supply, but it's, you know, more powerful. Mickey, I need to get my screws and things. Give me 1 second so I can grab that stuff. Screws I was looking for. I got some more somewhere, but they should work. I don't know if you guys have ever worked on one of these old cases. I used to have a general rule for cases like this, that you can't work on them. You cannot build a new computer on one of these old cases without showing blood, because they have some very sharp edges on them. Don't know if I'm gonna get that going there or not. Wait. Let's see. Eric says, what else can I buy except Sapphire RX 5700 XT? Like same GPU but other distribution. Again, XFX was the big name that I used to know back in the day. Again, I've been out of the AMD circle for a while. Power Color is definitely one of the big ones. But I can't really say anything about the brands. I just know that they exist now. I haven't followed XFX in a while. They don't seem to be as big as they used to be, but they're still there. Power Color, the only thing I really know about them is they work with YouTubers a lot, so I guess that's a good one to support if you want to support YouTubers. They don't support me, but maybe one day. All right, power supply is mounted. One thing I wanted to talk about, these power supplies, they have a switch on them, are pretty good for helping you ground the case. There used to be a rule that if you were working on a computer and you don't have something like the static mat that I have right here, you would use, you would plug in your power supply and just leave it off, and having it plugged in and having it, have the cord plugged into the wall, and as long as it's a grounded outlet, actually grounds the case itself. So it helps if you live, especially if you live in a dry climate and you're shocking everything that you touch. That's a good way to ground the case. I'm in Texas. It's very humid. It's very hot. It's even raining in some parts of North Texas today. So not a dry climate by any means, but that's, if you want to take those precautions, there you have it. Again, this case isn't made for wire management, so this stuff is, most of these cables will probably just be bundled up and stuck here in the top. You need to take this fan out because it's not staying. And this fan right here was just a generic 12-volt fan, just plugged into a MMXIX connector. I would never build a computer for somebody with one of those. These are the fans that I take and put them in a box somewhere, just in case the day comes where I just need a generic fan to sit on a desk or something. I would never build a computer with one of these, not today. That also goes for 3-pin fans. 3-pin fans should be phased out by now. You use the voltage on those to slow them down, which means once they're spinning slow, they don't have very much torque. Versus a PWM fan, which still has the full 12 volts available to it. So if something like wind resistance or something starts slowing the fan down, it has the extra power available to speed the fan back up so that it's spinning the speed it should be spinning. But 3-pin fans and those type of fans should not be used in any new build today. As long as you have options, use them. Right. And again, we're using the ML120s. Oh, another point I should make about those fans. For 4-pin fans, Noctua and some other companies sell these little inline devices you can put on there to slow the fan down. That's because you're either plugging it into a 3-pin header, or because for some reason the controller is not slowing it down enough. Just realize that if you do that, you're basically doing the same thing. You're losing the ability to supply more torque if something happens. So in those cases, it's more or less making it work like a 3-pin fan that's being slowed down. Not a good way to go if you can avoid it. What is in there? Oh my God, Noctua, what is up? I have to tear the box apart to get this fan out? Seriously? What is it? Oh. Yeah, fan comes with screws and wire ties. Nice. So if you don't know fans, let's see. It's gonna be hard to see on this one, but computer fans, almost all of them have these arrows right here that tell you the direction the blades turn and tell you which way the air goes. But if you don't have those, generally the exposed side of the fan is the intake, and it blows towards the label side with the bracket braces. Those are old school tips that you usually don't need these days. Back then we didn't have all these labels and stickers and LEDs and stuff. Another thing that's not an issue as much these days, these fans back in the day used to have very sharp edges on the corner, on the tips of the blades. And I have in my life tried to reach into a case and accidentally hit the fan and brought my thumb out with blood just pouring down it because that blade just sliced straight into it. It's probably why these newer ones have curved edges on them now. They used to suck. Back in the day, I used to put grills over these fans just to keep that from happening again. All right, that's one fan, 2 more to go. So the other fans, we'll go here on the front. Let's see if you can see this. This plastic grill right here. Just take that out like that. It's got 2 mounting holes each fan. Put them on there and snap it back in. Also need to put screws in that hard drive on the other side. So I'll do that now, so I don't forget. It says we always should install fans first. It doesn't really matter. It's just a convenience factor. If you have radiators, that it could drastically excuse me, it could drastically change the order that you install things. I just do fans to get the stuff. I prepared a case first and get that out of the way. So as far as I'm concerned, the fans are part of the case. I'm mounting these fans in such a way that the wires will go to the middle. That way it'll help wire management some. Middle towards the back side of the case. Even though this has no windows, I guess wire management is not really critical, but I just do it out of habit, I guess. This particular brackets only have 2 screw holes for the fans, and each one of the other corners there's a little like a little pin or something that goes in the hole, just to help you line it up, I guess. Hey Eric, thanks for joining me, man. Have a good day. When it comes to mounting fans, remember this is plastic that you're putting these screws in, so you only want to hand tighten them. Do not over tighten. They won't go anywhere, trust me. Just basically a little bit past snug is where you need to stop. And always, just by habit, learning to change a wheel on a car, just by habit, I always alternate patterns when it comes to screws and things. That probably does nothing for a computer in most cases, but it's just a habit. Tighten, alternate, in an alternating pattern. I'm gonna run these through this hole. Actually, didn't realize this bar goes between it, so come out of there. Satisfying click. They're in. They're ready to go. And of course, these won't even be seen once it's all put back together. But it's about performance. Get some cool air in here to cool all that nice hardware she's getting. All right. everything else is ready to go. Power connections, front panel, and the fans. So now we need to know what standoffs we're missing, because this case doesn't have all of them, because it had a mini ATX board in here. So the standard 3, those are in there. The one up here is in there. This one is there. This one is here, but it's missing this one. I don't know if you see. It's missing this one, and the one up here. So I need 3 standoffs for that. I hope the ones that I have are the same size. One thing I've run into over the years, not every standoff is threaded the same, and not all of them have the same spacing, which is annoying when it comes to working on some cases. So it looks like this one is the same height, but it might use a different screw. Looks like the screws that they had were bigger, threaded. And it looks like it matches. It looks just like it. Hopefully that's the same size. That one looks like it's the same. You get something like this by working on enough computers. You know, anybody who works on cars or electronics a lot, you know that whenever they disassemble something or they take something apart, or especially if it's scrap pieces, keep the screws, because you never know when they come in handy. Perfect. Works perfect. And I wish I had my driver here. Just like with everything else, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is 5mm. I'm not entirely sure on that. I think this is 5mm. It's not marked, but I believe it's 5mm. You want these to be snug because you don't want them turning when you try to, if you try to take out a motherboard, they start spinning, it causes a pain. It's very much a pain in the butt. But at the same time, do not over tighten them, because I have stripped them before, and that's a pain. That's a bigger pain. Trying to get a motherboard out and you have a strip screw in there, a strip standoff. All right, everything is ready for the motherboard. So this guy back in there. So your first time doing installing one of these motherboards, getting past the I/O shield, it can be a pain, but more or less you just need to go in kind of at an angle. There are little grounding tabs that stick off the I/O shield. You need to make sure that those are on top of what they're supposed to be on top of, because if they go inside of it, it's just going to cause you problems later. Once you get the motherboard in, check the back, look at the I/O shield, and make sure that every one of those grounding tabs are on top and not inside. Because once you get the computer all put together, the only way to get them out is to take the whole thing apart again. It's a pain. And usually what I do once I have it in place, just take one screw and secure the motherboard. I usually do either this one right here or the one near the back. You just want to hold it in there so it's not going anywhere, and so that it doesn't back off that IO shield. This particular shield was just a flat piece of metal, but some of them have a like a cushion on the back with foil over it, so that the foil is always making contact with the IO ports. And those particular types, they push the case back, so you definitely have to have something in there. Let's see if this is the same threading. Don't know if it's the right screw or not. We can try. Looks like it is. Alright, motherboard's in there secured. Again, just going to check to make sure that all of them, the USB 3, they're good. The ones that go to the sides are good. None of the ports have the metal stuck inside them, so we're good to go. In this particular case, though, that was a bad decision because that is where the M.2 bracket mounts. So that screw I'm going to have to take out. But let's put another one in there for the other spaces first. See, this motherboard came with its own screws. So that screw that I just put in there, it's supposed to have one of the standoffs because the heat shield for the M.2 goes there. So I'll be taking that out, putting this in after I get another screw in there. Take this screw and I'll just put it to the one to the right of it. Is this gonna need one? I might need some light for you guys. Let me get one of my flashlights to help us out here. A little bit. Amazing. As much light as I got in here, I feel like I need more. All right, let's put this standoff. I don't know if you can see that or not. This little guy here, we'll thread in there, and on the other side it has a hole for the M.2 bracket. And it needs a small screwdriver. Flathead. Small enough. Yeah, I don't think that'll be an issue. It's not going anywhere. Again, hand tighten should be more than enough for it. this is going from here to there, so that's going to need one as well. Where is it? Can't tell if that's threaded differently or not. Okay, so this is the same thread as the screws that hold the M.2 down. So I think this little guy here will work. Let's check the spacing on that and see. Looks right. All right, well. Sorry. You have to remember to take this blue stuff off right here. That right there is thermal transfer material. Forget the actual name of it, but just make sure you pull the blue part off. Try not to touch it, or try not to get fingerprints and stuff, oil and stuff on it. M.2 is in there. Heatsink is on it. Okay, so we're still missing 3 screws down there and 3 at the top. So we'll put those in. This should work. And just for camera's sake, I'm picking my screws out like over the computer. But generally speaking, you don't want to have your screws over the computer, because if you drop one, it can be a pain in the butt to get it out. especially if it falls under the motherboard or something else that you've already mounted. This is also when a magnetic screwdriver comes in handy. And to be honest, I don't think this thing was magnetic when I first got it. I think I magnetized it myself. There's one. And there's two. All right, got that, and one more screw, and we're off to the races. Right. So first thing I always plug in are the power connections. This particular board has a 4 plus an 8 pin for the power or for the CPU. So I will plug those in first. Where's the 4 pin? I'm tripping. Ah, there it is. Okay, 4 pin. Now, I should say this. Be careful on newer power supplies. They generally have 8 pin connections for the power supplies. I mean, for the GPUs. This power supply is so old; it doesn't even have 8 pin for the GPUs. So, in this particular case, there's no mistaking, which one is which. But in some of them, you need to watch that. Guess put the 4 pin in first because it's on the bottom. I guess it helps if I put it in there the right way, right? Alright, so those are in. The one for the motherboard. So the first fan. That's a pump fan header. Technically, I typically count this as fan number. I would count the first two as 1 and 2, and this one as 3. I don't see any headers at the back, so I guess it's gonna have to go all the way to the bottom. I don't see any under there either. Okay, so this one's definitely gonna have to go to the bottom, which is unfortunate, but it will live. Yeah, and I'm considering that one fan number 3. The reason I ran the wire right there is because on PCI Express devices, there's a gap from the front to the back. As a wire management thing, I always run any wires that need to come down here through there. That usually goes for the same for the front panel audio if you have a connector that's right there in the middle of the board for some reason. These fans will be 1 and 2. Okay, let's see. Okay, so these connectors probably not going to work without an extension. Oh, it'll just barely reach. Okay, so I'm gonna get her to buy an extension for that because that's a wire management nightmare right there. Having wires that don't go as far as they should is the number one issue, number one reason. Wow, this whole thing is going to be an issue. You're fine, yeah. So horrible. All of the wires, every single one of them is too short. The audio. This is the audio connection way over here. And it doesn't reach either. I guess this little one does. horrible. You see that? This case is from an era where they just did not care. Why? Why is that so short? Oh, that's gonna drive me crazy. Okay, we don't need front panel audio right now. Let's see, hard drive LED, power switch, reset switch, power LED. Plus minus. Oh god, this is a mess. I don't think y'all can see this on this camera, but so this power LED used to be in a 3-pin connector. And whoever built the computer last, they just cut the connector in half. So these aren't regular size like they should be, and they're proven to be a pain in the butt to get on there. When it comes to the LEDs on this, the color wire is generally positive. And if it's not labeled on here, if it's not labeled on the end connector, I've seen some of them where they're labeled. These don't look to be. But generally speaking, if the connector doesn't have labels on it, the color wire is generally the positive, and the black wire is generally the negative. I've seen some of these cases though where it'll be one color wire and one white wire, and sometimes there's a toss up on those. Okay, that's power switch. It's the reset switch, power switch. I'm just waiting for the day when somebody just standardizes this and just makes a connector that you just plug into the board. I don't understand why this isn't a thing yet. How's it going, Raven? You lucky guy. I have to wait 5 days for my 3800X. Yeah, it wasn't luck. We got up at 6 a.m. and we were at Micro Center about 40 minutes before they opened, and there was already a long line by the time we got there. And we had the option to order online, pre-order, but I wasn't gonna do that. I knew we could get the parts we wanted if we just went, bothered to stand in line for them. I don't know if everybody did. That line was very long. By the time we finally got to the front of the line, it was still the length it was when we first started standing in it. Okay, so that's the power switch. The hard drive LED should be this red and black one. It is. Put that one on there, and the reset switch is the purple and black. When it comes to switches, you don't have to worry about polarity on those. Just connect them any kind of way you want to. If you want them to look a certain way, then do that. It doesn't matter. But when it comes to LEDs, polarity generally matters. But you know what also would be a nice thing is if they just started using LEDs that could be hooked up either way and still work. I don't know why that's not a thing yet either. All right. Power connection's on. Fans are plugged in. Got a USB ports. This one might reach. Let's see. I think it will. Just barely. I mean, that's still super ugly. I hate that it has to reach over across it like that. Oh, there's only one USB. Thought it had two. So the only thing that I'm not able to plug in is the audio connector. Just because I'm not going to have it sitting there going across the PCI Express like that. That's pitiful. Horrible case design. You have the case is a certain size. Why aren't the cables long enough to reach all the way? That makes no sense. All right, so last thing to do is to connect the power to those devices and then stick the GPU in here. So I'm gonna wire up these first. Let's see. This one has MMXIX that probably won't be used at all. And let's see. All right, SATA, 2 extensions can go in there. Wire management is a pain in this case. It's going to drive me nuts. The power supply having non-modular cables is not helping. My OCD is on high alert right now. Okay, I'm not really OCD. It's just OC is just I'm a perfectionist. It's not OC. I'm just a perfectionist. That's all it is. I'll tie these cables up later. I just need to make sure that everything works before I start permanently tying up everything. Generally, a YouTuber will tell you to test everything before you build the computer. I never do that. I assume that, you know, they wouldn't have sent the parts out if they didn't work, and then I'll find out later if they don't. Got all those in place. Hard drive. That one will have to be tied up somewhere, some kind of way. I need 3 SATA cables. The motherboard comes with 2. Not sure if this is long enough to actually reach anyway. Let's see. Yeah, I'll definitely reach. I need 2 of these, but I only got 1. The other one comes out straight. Nice. These are the old cables. this, we can use this yellow one here. This cable is physically labeled HDD. Really? Okay, whatever. These two are labeled SATA 6 gigabit. This one says ASUS on it. I seriously doubt ASUS make their own cables, but whatever. They're both 6 gigabit, so I'm just going to use these two instead of the one that came with the motherboard. So, oh, this is nice. The motherboard actually has arrows to tell you that which one is up and which one is down. So the bottom one is 1, the top one is 2. That is nice. That is nice. I wish everybody did that. On the ASUS boards, I'm always guessing. But in the end, it doesn't really matter because once you get into Windows, Windows relabels all your connections. So you put a hard drive on SATA 1, it comes out to be like 9 or something. That is frustrating. But when you're in the BIOS trying to troubleshoot, knowing which port it's on, that helps. Okay, and one last one for the hard drive. This one's a 92, so I'm not going to even use it. Because the hard drive's at the bottom, I don't want one that's pointing down. Alright, let me just check out some of my stats real quick. Nice. Some people were actually streaming in 4K. Hope y'all enjoyed that. Of course, I mean, what you see right now is not really 4K. And this camera is not 4K. I take that back. This camera is 4K, but I couldn't get it to show in 4K for some reason. So the image that you see is probably a lot blurrier than it should be. But my main camera, whenever I switch back to that one is 4K. Alright, one last thing to put in. Everything is in there and connected. That leaves only the GPU. Alright guys. So we got 3700X in there. that's our CPU. If you missed the beginning, and the GPU, because our computer owner is a fan of AMD. She wanted the She actually, to be honest, she wanted a Fury R9, which I quickly talked her out of. She just knew that it was, you know, a card that people talked about a lot back in the day. But I told her that if she just waited a little while, we could get one of these on launch day. So that's what we did. And she was wondering, you know, how much faster is this card? It's so much faster that they don't even include the card that she wanted on benchmarks anymore. This card is considerably faster. As I understand, it's comparable to the RTX 2070. We'll have to look at it later and get some real world numbers. And I probably won't be doing that in this stream. It'll probably be a secondary stream. I might just make a second live stream and we'll like benchmark things live or something. But in this one, we just want to make sure that everything works, get it all put together and set up. Let's see. Jimbic says, "Hey man, I came in the chat to ask a question. I'm building my first gaming PC in November, and I was wondering, is this build worth it for $1,000?" We actually paid slightly more than $1,000 for all this stuff. But yeah, in my opinion, yes. This is AMD has pretty much flipped the industry on its head because their processor and GPU combination for what you can get is amazing. I mean, this is pretty outstanding. The quality, the power that you have under this hood. To be honest with you, if this hardware was out 3 years ago, I probably would have never built Sledgehammer because this computer that I'm building right now for her can handle most of what I do. Of course, you know, right now I'm streaming live to YouTube and to Facebook at the same time, and one of those streams is in 4K. But as far as, you know, I have I/O needs on Sledgehammer, but as far as everything else goes, processing power wise, I think this computer more or less can handle it. If not, then maybe the 3800 or the 3950. There's a lot of threads tied up in everything that I do, but we're to the point where for $1,000 you can do a hell of a lot. And keep in mind, Sledgehammer costs many times more than what she paid for this upgrade. If you want to know the exact number, you have to go watch that video. I'm not going to say it on this stream. Good. This thing, wow, this thing has some heft to it. Jeez. Observe precautions for handling. Handle your PCI Express graphics card with care to avoid damaging. Let's see. Mike Novell says it's all relative. If you have nothing, then yes. If you have a decent rig, then yeah. I mean, if you already have a decent rig, then there's probably no real reason to upgrade at this time. It's just relative to what you have. This computer right here, the old hardware that I pulled out of here was very old. Her GPU or APU was, let me see, it's on here. Oh, well, it doesn't say the exact processor, but it was an A series AMD. We're talking, you know, quite old. This is a very old build that I'm upgrading. Came here for a sleeper build. I'm about to build a sleeper inside the second computer my family had. The one after Apple. Wow. HP Pavilion from 1995. Wow. Is it one of those beige cases that we used to all have? Oh man, that is taking it back. This is not quite that bad. I mean, if you just look at this case, you don't assume that it's high performing in any kind of way. I mean, it even still has the DVD drives and things in there, and I'm leaving the sticker on there unless she wants to swap it out. It has room for, you know, a floppy drive in it. This is, you know, it's not 1995 old, but it's, you know, it's gonna live up to its name. It's definitely gonna be a sleeper build. But geez, a 1995, I would like to see that. You should post a link or something on the Technoscope page or something when you get that done. I would love to see that. Man, this card is huge. I had no idea. Wow. Okay. Now this I do like. There's no DVI Express, DVI port. I'm glad that they've gone away from that. I think AMD might have did it before NVIDIA did, but there's no reason to have DVI on there where you can just plug a simple adapter in and get to it. I'd rather have, you know, all the air cooling in here, and one day, I still haven't seen it yet, but one day, single slot cards with water cooling is going to be a thing. I'm just waiting for it. I'm ready to go back to the days where a video card only takes up one slot. But man, this thing, gosh, let me see if I can get a little bit closer so you can, right there. All aluminum body, this thing is nice. Wow. I guess those are LEDs that light up. Those caps and resistors, man, looks like a small city in there. This is crazy. And it's got a heat heat warning sticker on it. Oh man, that's amazing. I like this back. I'm not really sure how to describe this. I'm a fan of old school cars, and this back reminds me of the old school. I'm not really sure what car that I'm thinking of, but it reminds me of old school cars. Well, I just like it. That's pretty cool. I'm not a fan of this dent. I know it's their, you know, artistic expression. Man, I'm not a fan of that dent. Everything else I love. That dent just, no. The back here though, I love that. Let's see what Mike says. Or catch up on the chat. Jambek says, yeah, I heard this stuff was really good. I was originally going for a 2700X and a 260 and a 2060. Yeah, she wanted a 2700X too, and I was like, AMD is about to drop their new hardware, so you should probably wait before we do that. I was expecting new GPUs, but I was not expecting a new CPU yet. Of course, I probably would have known had I just been, you know, paying attention to the news. But yeah, they released all new hardware, and here we are. And I should have punched that out before I started doing this. I hate these old cases like this. Why? Why was this even a thing? I mean, the covers don't really cost that much, do they? And now that I've done that, I don't think that was the one that I needed to take out. I think it's the one below it. Perfect. That's all right. I'll just put a blank in there. I got plenty of them. Even makes it even worse. These cases are the ones that are known for cutting you up. Surprisingly, I haven't cut myself yet, but it's only a matter of time. These cases. There we go. All right, let's see what else. Mike says, yeah, I already read that one. Mike also says, you're right. That front does have a slot for a zip drive, so it can't be that modern. Yeah, I know it's an old case because she told me that the build that was in here, the A series AMD, was an upgrade to a system that used to be in here. So this is technically the second upgrade for this computer. So yeah, I mean, surprisingly, it still works, but I mean, this is definitely up there on the sleeper scale. Jamie says, yeah, the Radeon logo lights up. Yeah, that should be cool. We're not going for, you know, RGB. I know the board has LEDs on it as well, and the what do you call this, Wraith cooler, that has LEDs, but you won't, once this is put together, you won't see anything in here unless it's like you see light coming from the back. There shouldn't be anything. All right. Wow, this. So the card looks like the card is going to stick off beyond the motherboard. Wow. I guess it takes a lot to keep that kind of performance cool. Also, I'm not used to GPUs that go out that far. They go out beyond the motherboard because in Project Sledgehammer, I'm using a SSI EEB motherboard, which is freaking huge. You know, like it's almost like taking this and laying another one beside it because the motherboard is just freaking huge. So, it's technically a server grade board, so it's on another scale when it comes to talking about that kind of stuff. CPUs are also like freaking huge. So when I see a normal size CPU, they look tiny to me. Alright. See, I got thumb screws. You won't see these thumb screws from the outside, so that'll maintain the sleeper appearance. Because cases back in the day didn't have thumb screws. You had to have a screwdriver or you were just screwed. This case didn't even have thumb screws on the back. It's just a couple screws in the back of it. And I'll get some blanks for that later. I got some somewhere in here. And last thing to connect is this. Now, this power supply only has 6-pin connections. The last two on the 8-pin connection are grounds, so technically don't need them. But it's rated higher when you have those extra 2 connections. So we're going to try to get everything we can with this power supply, but if it's not enough, she has the budget, we'll upgrade it to a better power supply. But I'm hoping that, you know, these 2 6-pins will be more than enough. All right, at this point, everything is connected. We should be able to power it on and get something. So let's plug it in, make sure it powers on. So first thing you do, plug it in, turn the power supply switch on. If everything is good, You shouldn't see any smoke. And then the second step is to turn it on and make sure everything lights up and all the fans are spinning. If you do this and the computer immediately shuts off while you're trying to power it on, it usually means something is wrong. Usually means something is shorted or something like that. And the power supply itself has built-in protection to keep you from damaging itself and other things. But I wouldn't rely on that. It's usually best to make sure that everything's hooked up right, because something does go wrong. Something could go up in smoke long before the power supply realizes that there's an issue. This power supply actually has a protection circuit LED. I don't know if you can see that or not. There's an LED right there that lights up if something is wrong. It's not on, so looking good so far. And I'm not sure which one is the power switch. Let's find out. So the one on the right is a power, the one on the left is a reset. Pretty. Wow. Okay, I don't know if you heard that. That's the fan for the chipset just spun up. Okay, I'm about to move that cable. It's interfering with that. This is interesting. Wow, that thing's been slow. Okay. The USB cable is interfering with that chipset fan because of these little tags on here. We know what they are, so I'm just gonna cut these off, tear them off. They don't need to be on there. It's not as easy to do these days because of the way that these are made. But when the first case I ever got where I had to wire the USB ports up like that, it didn't have that little filler in the empty hole, and I put it on there backwards. And that's how I found out that power supplies will shut the computer off if it finds a short. Because the moment I tried to turn it on, that USB cable being backwards created a short on the case, and that's how I learned that. Let's see about the chat real quick. Okay. Looks like we're still caught up. All right, so just making sure that everything runs. The fan here is turning. The two front fans are turning. Except that one of the fans I put on that backwards somehow. I don't know how you guys let me slip up and do that. Okay, I'm going to turn that fan around, but it looks like everything else is working like it should. This just trips me out. I've never seen that before. Is that like sound control? So like it's just going to sit there and just barely spin? It is crazy. Okay. I guess I need to fix this fan and then we'll end the stream. I can't believe I put that on there backwards like that. And of course I can't take it out with the wires attached. I don't know. I can't believe I didn't notice that. I really did not notice that when I was putting it on there. Yeah, that was annoying. Okay. We'll put it in here like this. Yeah, things like this happen, so this is one of the reasons why whenever you build something, you just have to check your work, make sure that everything is good to go. Fan was in there backwards. I mean, it'll still run. Won't cool very efficiently with one of the fans blowing all the air out that the other one's sucking in. So, but it'll still work. All the fans blowing the way they should. Very nice, very nice. All right, do y'all have any questions or anything? Let me see what's going on in the chat. Should have gone with the MSI Ace. It is faster, better for overclocking. I'm assuming the MSI Ace costs a lot more money. There were budget constraints on this build. So when she wanted to build this computer, she told me what her budget was, and I tried to pick the best hardware I could for it. We were at Micro Center yesterday. The only other one that I saw, well, there were two more in this price range. One was the ASRock, and I forgot what the other one was. But yeah, it's budget constraints. Otherwise, I wouldn't be using the included cooler. We'd have, all in one right here. So that mini ITX. Yeah. Yeah, that is nice for a factory cooler. I've got to admit that's very nice. I'm surprised. But what trips me out is how, like, I guess that it can tell what the temperature of the CPU is because it's connected to the motherboard. And apparently it doesn't need any more cooling right now, so it just spins the fan, super slow, it's just crazy to me. I've never seen that before. And right now the fan on the chipset is not running. If you had that question before, let me see if I don't know if you can see this or not. That fan is not spinning right now. It spun up during the boot up process, so I guess there's something where it checks to make sure that the fan actually runs, and then it just stops. And it just sits there until it's needed. So if you were worried about that making a lot of noise at all times, it looks like that's not turning at all times. The one on the GPU is turning right now. Let me see if I can. I don't think you can get a good enough angle on that. Maybe not. Don't know if you can see that or not, but the fan is actually turning for the GPU. Right now, the loudest fans are the ones at the front. So I'm sure there's a BIOS setting somewhere that might need some tweaking for that. The GPU itself can't hear it. I can hear it if I put my head up to it, but it's not making enough noise that, you know, it's audible. Obviously, that's not making any noise. It's barely turning. These Corsair fans are moving quite a bit of air though. That's nice. The cooler this power supply, as far as I know, the fan on it just runs all the time. It never turns off. So that's a thing. Let's see what he's saying. Looks good, nice colors, around 200. Yeah, $200. We probably actually could have gotten that after we saved the money buying all these parts at Micro Center, because we got away about $200 less than we were intending to spend, because it was like a combo deal, first day plus the $50 off the AMD was doing thing. So we save about $200 off what we were intending to spend. Are you gonna do some benches? I'm not testing right now. I will probably start up a secondary stream later today. I have to set up the capture first before I can do that. So probably give me like an hour or two, and I'll probably start up a second stream where we're actually going to do the Windows installation, software installation, and run some tests on to see how it does. But not in this stream. This stream is finished now, so it was just for the building. The second one will be all the software. And you're talking about the fan. Yes, it only runs when you use boost. Yeah. This is amazing to me. I mean, especially considering Sledgehammer over there. When I turn it on, those fans kick in. Even though I'm speed controlling them, and they're 120 millimeter Noctua fans, but the moment you turn that computer on, they're spinning, and they're spinning good. There's the CPUs I have. They're the 18 core variants of the Haswell architecture, so they produce some heat. They're rated at 145 watts, 145 watt TDP each chip. So yeah, it can get toasty in there. But 7 nanometer technology versus over there what is 28, I believe. It's amazing how far technology has come in just a few years. It's really crazy, but I'm loving it, loving every minute of it. AMD has done something very nice with this, and this sleeper build right here. It wasn't intended to be a sleeper build, but the budget constraints made it become one. So it won't look very great, but it'll whoop your ass in a lot of stuff unless you have the newest, latest, and greatest. So, but like I was saying, guys, hold on one second. Like I was saying, this build is now finished. There will be a second part later tonight because I'm going to hook this up, get this table cleared off. I'm gonna get the monitor set up in here. We're gonna set all this up, and then I'm gonna set up video capture for this, which means if you're watching on Facebook, you will not see this because I need to use the video capture on that one to capture video for the computer itself. So if you're on Facebook and you want to see part 2 with the software setup and benches and all that stuff, you need to make your way over to the YouTube channel, technoscope.tv. Don't forget to subscribe while you're there. Everybody that watched this video, I'm glad you came. I'm glad you were here to watch this. Let me see. Intel sucks. They up 14 nanometer plus, but the power and heat went up and up. Yeah, those Intel chips, they get toasty. They really do. The 7 nanometer technology should help a great deal. I mean, we're getting to the point where the process shrink is so big, or so small rather, that they can actually take hardware, on the level of what we had just a few years ago, and put it on something as small as a Raspberry Pi. If you know anything about Raspberry Pi, they released the Raspberry Pi 4 last week, And the specs on the Raspberry Pi 4, those specs are the same as the computer that I was running for my desktop back in 2007. And I had a powerful computer. People thought I was crazy for running 4 gigs of RAM in my computer in 2007. And now they have a Raspberry Pi computer this big, $55 that you can go buy and does the same thing. So, I mean, they're catching up. And it's because the process shrink means they can make smaller, more efficient processors. On this side of gaming, instead of making it more efficient, we just cram more in there and make it more powerful. So, you know, we up the performance. So, I mean, but it works for everybody. But yeah, it's great. So, again, there will be another event created when I know when it's going to go live. Give me an hour or two to rest, and then I'm going to set up everything, and we'll do the second part where I install Windows, we load some games, test everything out. And I think the person that owns this, I believe she's going to come. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we made that determination or not. But if she doesn't, then oh well. If she does, then she'll be here as well. But either way, give me a couple hours, and we'll be back to do part 2 of this video. And hope you like it. Hope you like this video. If you liked it, if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, definitely subscribe because those numbers help out. But anyway, thanks guys for joining, and I'll be back. See you in a little bit.